Hello, welcome to another episode of Tiny Nest. I'm Kiva.
And I'm Jake. This series is following our tiny house project from the early stages through to completion and beyond.
We've said before how we don't plan on moving our tiny house much, but we have moved it once to attend a special event. This episode shows some of the things we did to have our house ready to be on the road.
We're starting to clean up underneath. We've got all this extra length on the rods, so I'm going to cut these down a little bit. Something kind of interesting that we've noticed here is that all those huge structural screws that we drove in are now sitting slightly down off of the face of the flange, which means they're a bit loose. And that's because when we drove them in, we cinched them down when there was just the framing on the trailer. And since then we've added all the roofing and the siding, among other things, to add a lot of weight. So that little bit of sill gasket and then a couple layers of plywood that's on the other side of the flange has compressed under that weight just a hair, and as a result the screws are now down a tiny bit. So it's just a bit. I can just get my fingernail under the head of it, so we're going to go and tighten all those down as we go here. And we've also noticed on the same sort of subject that the rods are also not quite as springy tight when we flick them on the inside, and so they've obviously also lost a little bit of tension from this settling and compression. So I'm also going to give those an extra crank down to make sure that all this stuff is tight with the sort of final weight that it's got to bear. I don't want to overdo it. And while I'm down here, I'm giving these bolts a quarter turn as well, just to make sure that they're still tight. So we're going to trim these down, both for looks and for the purposes of towing. We wouldn't want this to hit the ground. And we've chosen an amount to go with, and I'm just going to cut it off. Pretty good, and then we're just gonna sand off the roughness and make sure to seal this. We're gonna use some primer and paint it so that it can't absorb. Obviously moisture that drips down here could collect on the bottom and wick in and expand it and all the rest of that. So we're gonna make sure that's protected as well. Our trailer, as with any trailer that is gonna be hauling a heavy weight, is equipped with electric brakes, and it has a breakaway switch, which basically what it does is it's got this little cord that you loop around your towing vehicle, and then if all the provisions for attaching the trailer to the vehicle fail and it comes completely free, it'll pull this cord, which pulls a pin out of this little switch, and then it will dump all the energy that this battery has into the electric brakes and hopefully stop the loose trailer instead of just having it rolling free and smashing into wherever it ends up going. I'm not super knowledgeable on batteries, but I do know that they're best kept in a condition where they're not going to get super hot or super cold, such as baking out here in the summer and then getting super cold in the winter. So we took this out right away when we got here and stored it in the garage, and now it's been about a year. And you should do maintenance on batteries, like topping up the charge and checking it every once in a while, but we didn't do that. So just now I'm sort of checking it over and seeing if it's still good. The voltage was quite high. It was 12.5 volts, which is pretty close to what you'd expect from a fully charged 12-volt battery. So, and a battery being in a discharged state for a prolonged period of time can degrade it and cause it to be no longer good. So it doesn't look like that's going to have been too much of a problem, but I'm going to put it back into the little housing here and reconnect it. I've got the battery back in the enclosure and hooked up, and it's important always to observe the color coding for whatever you're connecting to, because trailers have white for negative/ground and black for 12 volts. The charging module inside the case here has white for ground / negative, and red for 12 volts. And cars, of course, have black for negative / ground and red for 12 volts. So I'm always making sure to observe the correct connections in each spot, so that there's no short circuits or anything. So the nice thing about this charging module that's in here is it has a testing panel on the front that will tell us whether or not it thinks that it has enough charge, or that the battery has enough charge for proper operation of the brakes in a breakaway condition. So it's really bright, so I'm just looking at the little LED here, and it's telling me that it needs to be recharged. And so I'm going to get power into this box, and I've looked at the way the wiring is connected. It goes to the 7-pin, trailer hookup that would go to a towing vehicle, but we don't have a towing vehicle with that the other end of that connector wired. So I've actually just opened up the connector, found the main power the power connection for negative and positive, and I'm just going to hook that up to my car, right onto the battery with some jumper cables, and get this to charge that way. Here's the plug here, and I've just opened it up to access all the wiring and disconnected from the actual plug the white, which is the negative, and the black, which is the positive. And so you can see this is my jumper cable, white and black, or sorry, black and red for regular car battery color coding. So black negative to white negative here, and red positive to black positive, 12 volts. And now all I need to do is match the red and black to my battery on the car to get the power into the trailer and the charging module and everything. So I confirmed that the module got its charging light illuminated. So we're just gonna run it for a while and check it until I guess the light goes out. I haven't done a charge cycle, so I'm assuming that's what'll happen. And obviously this is nice charging it this way because the purpose-built charging module is gonna charge it up to the right amount. So we left it charging for about an hour, and now when I push the test button, the fully charged light comes on, so we know that the brake battery is good to go. All right, so now I'm just going to undo my sort of dodgy clipping job here, and then put the plug back together and to make sure everything's all buttoned up under here. I also like to keep our plug end here wrapped with plastic so that it's not going to corrode at all. This is kind of a terrible job, but it's going to be coming off in the next few days anyway. So, another thing we're checking is the tires, particularly the tire pressure. We haven't touched them since we started building, so we have been pretty good about keeping them, keeping the sunlight off of them. This isn't perfect, obviously, but we're going to get some proper covers to cover the whole thing eventually. But in general, been trying to protect it from the sun. But having not checked the pressure since we got it, we want to make sure that it's good for the trip. And I just was looking online and learning that trailer tires should be pumped up to their maximum PSI rating in order to perform optimally under their full weight rating, which is pretty much what we're dealing here with all the weight of the house now going to be on them. And so the pressure rating is 65 PSI. And first of all, my gauge for my car only goes up to 50, because you never go anywhere near that high on a regular car. But I did find a gauge just in the garage that goes over 100, so I've been checking them out. They're mostly between like 50 and 55, so it's a bit low. So I'm going around and pumping them up with my little compressor, which has been really useful for a lot of things on this project. But it's really important to have them pumped up, because if they're too low and squishy, you can get a lot of drag and cause extra friction. The tires can heat up, and then that can affect them and cause failure, which basically means exploding, and just basically cause problems. So we're going to make sure that they're pumped up and ready for the trip. And then one other thing we're keeping in mind is that when pumping up tires, they're supposed to be cold, meaning you don't drive the thing and then pump it up after they've been rolling, which obviously is not the case here. But also, if the sun was beating down on them all day and then you pumped it up, it could affect the pressure reading that you're getting. So keeping these covered and pumping them up well before the trip is the best way to make sure that the pressure is correct.
The last prep that we did was to remove the awning on the morning of the move. Because it was our first time doing this, our method was a bit awkward and my dad gave us a hand. Since then, we've figured out a much better way that only requires 2 people. Jake and I removed it and replaced it at a later date with ease. If you want to see some of our previous videos, click on the preview tiles, and subscribe if you want to follow our progress. You can also visit our website here. I'm filming.
But there's like a loud plane overhead. It's a loud plane.